Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back, sister. I am Jaylan Boyce, your host, and you are on the She's Awesome podcast. Today, I have one of those powerhouse women who makes career success, family happiness, self care, life work balance look so easy that it could get a bit annoying. But funny enough, not only she's damn good at all the above, but she's also very vulnerable, open and honest about all of it and how nothing is perfect and she's in peace with all that. So not only you will like her, but you will love her. Who is she? Ready? So I am so honored and very excited to interview in this episode Viv Paxinos, the CEO of the very, very glamorous private members club Allbright, which holds I think more than 500,000 members operating from the Mayfair headquarters. Viv is amazing. She really believes in the power of the community. She's committed to developing her team. She's driven by this idea of empowering people to achieve the results that they want. And she's really passionate about advancing women in their professional life. So I'm telling you, you are in a treat. I know that we usually bring in this podcast entrepreneurs, but if you look at Viv's career, it's not just very entrepreneurial, but also it's really inspiring and impressive. So listen to that woman. She will blow your mind. Hello, everyone. As I said in my introductions, I have Viv Paxinos, CEO of Allbright, with me today, and I am really, really excited to be able to talk to her and learn more about her journey. Hi, Viv.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I am so excited too. So, Viv, you are one of the rare non-business owners that I brought on this platform, and the reason why is I found your background quite impressive and inspiring. And it's really rare to see that kind of crescendo of career movements. And I'm so excited to deep dive in your story and get to know you better, to be honest. Let's start with the classical intro, shall we? And can you tell us, you've been leading Albright since October 2022, too, right? And can you tell us a bit more about how did you land there? What was your journey?
Yes, absolutely. So I actually joined Allbright in June 2022, and I joined in a different role. So I joined as the CEO for the business, and then moved up to the CEO role fairly quickly. So I was asked to move up to that role within less than a few months of being at the company. But what led me here was I've had a career in corporates, big corporates. I've had a career in scale ups, mid-sized companies. And when I had, during my last role, which was in the middle of COVID, when I had my second child, I decided to go back to work fairly quickly. It was just a few weeks in, and I just thought I'm home so I can work. I had a big team, and I just thought it's fine. It's I can do it. But what happened is I found myself completely exhausted by the end of that last year and not really enjoying work or felt like I was being the best that I can be and the best leader. So I decided it was time to move on. And I think, like so many women during COVID, you just reflect on what you want. You reflect on what's important, your priority, your purpose. And I had a choice to continue in the traditional route that I was in, or to find something that was a little bit different and pivot my career. And I really wanted something that merged my passion for purpose and profit. And so Albright does that perfectly. I'm really passionate about making sure that women are achieving their career aspirations, that we're closing that gender pay gap, and that we're creating a workplace where all genders thrive. And then I'm also what I do really well is business transformation and growth. It's what I've done in my entire career. So this was a perfect opportunity to bring both together.
Fabulous. So, okay, there are so many things that I want to deep dive a little bit more. Um, a few weeks after your second child, are you crazy, woman? How did that
I
happen?
think every leader is a little bit crazy. Yeah.
Why? What did you do to yourself?
I figured I was home. We were all working from home, so I can start dialing in for calls. And it was probably not to my team's. It was probably disservice to the team because I was one foot in, 1 foot out, right?
Mm,
And so
mm.
that's never helpful from a leader. You're either in or you're out. And so I didn't want to completely let go, but I wasn't completely in otherwise. Otherwise, so I think it was quite a difficult time. And then I just once after a few weeks, I got like really into it. Then it led to me being really exhausted at the end of the year, right? Because I didn't take the time to recover after giving birth and so on. I just thought I could do it all.
Yeah, that's a great learning, I guess. I remember, but when I had my child, I was like, breastfeeding, like day 5 or 6, and coaching the CEO, and I was like, I'm not sure if I'm gonna fall asleep or the baby's gonna cry. So I do relate to that, and I guess what I can say is I do regret from a point of view of like I didn't enjoy neither of them 100%.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so yeah, I do relate to that. Um, you said something that is quite um interesting as well, and I want to know how did you live that moment. So you went into a new company as CEO, or okay, between CEO and CEO, maybe there's not a big, leap that would squeeze your heart to that, and you'll be like frozen of fear. But how did that feel? That jump? The company is new, everybody is new, the team is new, and you came for something, and then you are given a much bigger responsibility. How did you accept that?
Yeah, well, it's a big difference, and it's amazing what one letter in your title, what an impact it makes, right? Because at the end of the day, as CEO, and I never not see myself as the business owner. I'm running the company, and I report to like our board, and I see myself as this is my company that I'm running because that's my responsibility, and so one I couldn't say no. I knew it was an opportunity that I needed to jump into. I obviously took a step back and thought, gosh, okay. I didn't expect it. I knew I could do the job, but it was challenging because it was getting to know the team, it was getting to know a community, getting to know a new market. I didn't have any experience. I do have my background is really in transforming businesses and understanding where the growth opportunity are where the pain points are. I'm just bringing in a great team to get there. And it took some time. I'd have to say it's taken me a year to really feel at ease in my CEO role, especially as first time CEO, especially in a small business, a female founded business where the founding team is no longer part. So you have to. There's a lot of dynamics. There's a lot that I had to pick up, and a lot of learnings, and a lot of learnings in entrepreneurship in the last 18 months that I've been here, right? From fundraising to restructuring to working on the strategy to different business models, which, never had to worry about cash flow when you're in a company like a big corporate. I was responsible for close to 1 billion in annual revenue in one of my roles, right? So cash flow is not something you really worry about. I was never worried about what is our D&I strategy, what is our learning and development strategy. So you have all these other things to think about, and but I wouldn't change it. I always find comfort in the fact that we are all exactly where we're supposed to be. So I knew there was, this was part of my journey. So you kind of just, I just, you have to lean into it and go with it, right? You kind of go with the flow and do your best.
I think it's a big fearless step, and I don't believe that maybe it was that fearless. And I want to go a little bit deep in that because I also know that you do talk a lot about ambition. But before we go to the ambition part, so I have had a moment in my career when I was in the corporate where, I came to UK as group account director, and then I became and then like similar to you, I didn't know the country, the culture, people, the company, and then they said, "Okay, why don't you become a client services director?" And then I got into it. And to date, I always say, did I actually burn my wings in there? Because I was 29, you know, young, and I loved the fact that I was gonna have that kind of title that never happened before in that company at that age, young woman. Like, it was in the newsletters and stuff, like, oh, our youngest CS. And I loved it, and I was like really into it. Now you're in a completely different situation. Of course, you have the baggage of expertise, knowledge, and enough of failure, enough of everything to kind of re re-embrace yourself and get into this new CEO role. Um, Still, did you have the holy shit moments?
I did, yeah. I remember with my first event that I was hosting here at Allbright. I was getting out. I was as I was walking towards our our first floor where the event was taking place. I was putting on my eye makeup and my hands were shaking. I was like, oh my god, what if I mess this up? What if they don't like me? What if I do something wrong? What if I disappoint the team? And it's natural to have all those thoughts, but you kind of have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, well, fuck it, just go for it, right? And you just do. And I think I'm okay failing. I'm okay making mistakes. I would say that if I look back in the 18 months, I've learned so much, and I haven't always gotten it right. And that's something that, as a woman, it's really important that we get really good at, like, cultivate that habit to disappoint others is good, right? It's really, I thought, what's the worst that can happen? I'm going to learn from it. And we're afraid, especially sometimes as a C-suite leader, you don't want to get things wrong. You don't want to get embarrassed. You don't want to disappoint. There's times where, I think, oh, I could have done a better speech, or, not too long ago, towards the end of last year, I was hosting these amazing women, about 30 women who I've looked up to in the industry. And I thought, God, I have to stand up and talk in front of them. Like, I was really nervous. And I actually stopped in the middle of my speech and I said, oh, I'm just really nervous. And they actually all stood up and started to clap, right?
Oh,
And I think that's, you have to be vulnerable and you have to be open, and that you have ups and downs. And if I do well one week and I don't the other, that's fine, right? You can't, we're not going to be perfect all the time. So I have no issue getting things wrong and failing. So I just thought, like, what's the worst that can happen if I take this role? If anything, I'm just going to learn from it, right? And I just focus on where I want to take the company, where I want to take the team, and I focus on the impact that I'm also having, right? Both from a commercial success, but also from a purpose, from a purpose approach.
beautiful. I love what you're saying, that, um I'm okay with failing,
Yeah.
and giving that. When did you get that maturity and wisdom? Like, I'm okay that I'm not going to be perfect all the time. I'm not going to deliver 100% all the time, and I'm okay to fail. What how did you Were you always like this? Is it cultural, or did you actually have to work on it?
I had to work on it, and I've been very lucky that I've had great leaders who have taught me. Like, I was, growing up, to my family's Greek, so when you grow up, if you're a child of immigrant parents, you have a different, I think, mentality where you have to succeed, right? They've left their country to give you a better life. It's the expectation that you do better than they did, and that's constantly, you're constantly reminded of that, right? So that's where my drive came from. Like, I have to do well, right? my parents left where they had nothing, and it's really important, and that's ingrained into your work ethic and your ambition. And so I constantly was going for more. But there's a point in your career where you say, okay, well, do I need more? Do I just need to get better at what I'm doing and think about improving? And it's okay if I'm not constantly moving up. So I think that's what happened to me. I was in a role a few years ago, and I had a great leader, and he gave me some really clear feedback, really tough feedback, and it was great. And I think it comes with experience. It comes with maturity, where you think, okay, maybe well, I'm not all that good at everything, uh, you know, and
Oh, damn.
it's okay to admit, that was wrong and that was a mistake. And most of the time we don't, because we're afraid of what people will think, how it will reflect. But I think that's just tapping into being authentic and being yourself, right? And once you are, people either embrace that or not. So I think at some point, I think it comes, for me, with age. I think the older you get, the less you worry about what people think, the less you worry about, is this person, are they going to like me? What's the industry going to think if I do this? It doesn't really matter, as long as you're connected to your purpose and your why. And I often go back to that.
It is so true. And I guess really age impacts as well. So I'm from Turkish background, and my parents are high achievers. So one was an architect, the other one was a doctor, and they always had this speech like you gotta work hard, you gotta da 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 da. And 2 years ago they exited their business. So they were architect and doctors, and then they stopped it. They founded their real estate company. And then, of course, it grew. It became the best in Turkey and then best in Europe. Da da da. Remax.
Yeah.
You have it in that. So they had one of Remax franchises, and then they sold it last year, 2 years ago. And now I go to see them. They half of the time they live around the corner from my house in London. I see them, and my mom, who could not even like bear the idea that it wasn't like I wouldn't get 100% from an exam. She's like, "Oh, stop really working that hard. You don't have to you don't have to be the best." I'm like, "Mom, it's too late. It's too late now." But it is so true. Like with the age, you fail so many times that you accept that there will be ups and downs.
Uh,
Thank you so much for sharing that so openly.
And I think we also, for me anyway, you create tools and frameworks to help you deal with how you react. You learn like how to understand how your brain works, right? And I read a lot about neuroscience. I try to understand in the last few years. So, and you understand how to manage situations whether they're when they're not perhaps the outcomes that you wanted, right? And then taking this role, I'm also really comfortable asking lots of questions, no
Hmm.
matter how silly they might be. But I just need to make sure that everything is really, really clear in my head and I understand everything so I know how to navigate the business. So I just ask a lot of questions all the time.
That's the best leadership, right? Well, okay, I'm going to put you a little bit under the spotlight, but maybe you have the answer right away. Is you talked about like mental frameworks. Do you have anything that you can share with us that actually really helped you in front of a challenging situation?
Yeah, I have a really simple method that I do for anything. It could be family, like personal work, but I think whenever a situation or even a thought comes through my brain, I take a moment to assess it. One, I try to acknowledge whether that thought is true or not, because your brain is meant to protect you. So
Mm.
it'll tell you things that are not necessarily true. So I often take a step back and think, okay, is this thought, is what I'm thinking, true or not? And if it's not, then I just say, okay, time to move on, and I make it go away and I think of something else. And if it's true, my next question is, can I do something about it? Yes or no? If I can't do anything about it, then I just tell my brain to give me another thought. If I can do something about it, then I sit down and I think about that solution. So for me, taking those steps, and I've shared this a lot, and like it takes a few minutes to go through that process. It
Mm.
just allows you to take a breather, reflect. And it's so much about how we react to situations. And I think again that comes with just understanding how your brain works, understanding that you're not your thoughts, and that we are very much in control of how we react to situations. Now, sometimes it doesn't work in my favor. When I had my, somebody close to me a few weeks ago that helps me with childcare resign, I flipped, right? I was like, I didn't take my own advice, but on the majority of things, I usually do, right? But I think from a business point of view, that method always helps, and it just allows you to just take a step and just really reflect and ask yourself that question: Is that thought really, is it real or not? Because sometimes, just again, our brain is meant to protect us, so it'll say things that are meant to make us feel better, but it doesn't really.
Yeah. And I'm so relating to what you're saying. The episode that I released last week on She's Awesome podcast, I was talking about exactly this. Like, and I actually kind of, I do read a lot on neuroscience as well, but I kind of had that epiphany moment in one of my jet lagged nights where I woke up at 3 a.m. and I said to myself, oh my God, I have so much to do tomorrow. Now I'm not going to be able to sleep. And now, I'm going to be so tired tomorrow. And I was starting to feel that panic coming on to me. And then I was able to do exactly what you said, like, hang on a second, stop 2 seconds. And then I was going literally like a scientist on my brain and choosing the thoughts and categorizing them. And then I was like, oh, actually, I have the power to choose.
Yeah.
Choose that thought, leave it, put it aside, hop on it, and travel with that thought. Like, it's in my power. But as you say, sometimes, it, especially in a more probably emotionally involved topics, I flip as well.
Yeah, I couldn't help it. It's my Greek. But I would say that 90% of the time, I try and visualize like a stop sign, and that allows me to stop, think, assess the thought, and then make a decision based on that.
Yeah, that's a
It's a
great.
little hack that I use, and I think it works most of the time.
Well, that's a great hack. And thanks for sharing. Right. I'm going to shift the gears and talk a little bit about your environment of work, which is women, women, women now, right? With Allbright. Um, the upcoming International Women's Day theme is inspire inclusivity. So in that sense, I just wanted to know, what does it feel like to work in mainly women filled environment? What is missing? What is great about it? And um because I work in a mainly women filled environment as well. What are your thoughts around how can we push it forward?
So when I think about, so you mean here at Albright or just in
Yeah.
general? Yeah. So yes, we're female dominated, but we do have men on the team.
Mhm.
And I think that's very important, right? Because it's important to have, like, I believe in that true diversity, and that inclusion means all genders, and it's great to balance the different energies, right? Female and male, and feminine and masculine energy.
Yeah.
And women can be masculine and men can be feminine, right? But it's just that balance of the energy is really important. So what we try, like, for us, why it's important to move forward is when you look at the stats when it comes to women in the workplace, we're still not where we need to be. Men get promoted at a faster rate. The gender pay gap is going to take another 130 years. There's still not enough female CEOs. We've got 9% of our female CEOs here in the FTSE 100. So that's what we're trying to drive forward. And why it's important, for me, it's really simple. Like, women are the largest consumer in the world, right? They have the highest purchasing power. By 2028, their purchasing power will be 80% of the world. So really high purchasing power. The most important market in the world is the female market. But also, we're all after the same thing, which is, from a business point of view, big corporates, it's all around driving growth and innovation. And that doesn't come without diversity. And that means diversity of genders, diversity of cultures, diversity of age. And for us, it makes sense to focus on women because they're 51% of the population, right? So let's start there, because when it comes to diversity, there's a lot of areas that you can focus on. But if you start with the majority, which is women, then you can think about, okay, what am I doing for other populations in the workplace as well? And for us, it's really simple. We want women to, connect with their full potential. We want to try and change the stats positively. We know that some of the work we're doing has helped reduce the gender pay gap by a couple percentage points for our partners, and that's what gets us out of bed, right? Whenever we hear stories of women succeeding in our community, then that's really what the fuel that keeps us going, because we know we've had a small part to play. Does that answer the question?
It does. It does definitely. I my experience. So, we work mainly with small to micro business owners, you know, and they are, and our aim is to push them towards a million mark because, the stats. It's like a handful of women business owners get to million mark, and actually over 95 yeah, over 95% of women are on business owners work below VAT threshold, which is 80K.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like really really low, but that is the majority of women owned businesses. Now, I would love to get to one of your topic of passion. If I remember when I first met you, you talk about ambition and reframing ambition. And I think there will be a lot of thoughts that we can, you know, copy paste in entrepreneurship as well for that population. So tell me a little bit more about that reframing ambition. What does it mean? How do you see this?
Yeah, it came from our community, to be honest. So one of the, we do a lot of listening, and that was really important for me in my first 6 to 9 months, is listening and interviewing and doing focus groups with members of our community. And we found that still, when we mentioned ambition, they didn't like it as a word. And we thought, oh, that's really interesting. And not everyone, but we heard it a lot. And so we wanted to, for us, reframe ambition as something really positive, because it has this maybe negative connotation, a bit aggressive, and it's not, right. Like, if you're ambitious, not just for yourself but for your community and for everyone around you, then that's how you drive, your purpose forward. That's how you drive business results forward. So we wanted, and we find today's women, like, she's got the power to define what work is for her, whether that's being an entrepreneur, that's being in a corporate, that's being in a scale up, a flexible working, being a fractional. See, we hear a lot of that. We're seeing a lot of fractional CFOs, CMOs, all of that. I think we live in a time where women have never had more choices of how they define the work. And we wanted them to just really think about ambition as something positive, like whatever that means to them. And reframing ambition is just owning it for you and what that means for you, and also seeing that it's actually a really positive thing to be ambitious.
I, I find it so aligned with one of our events and the theme, which was "Be Bold." And I think there's one thing that I kind of fight against with our members or whoever comes across my journey is, why don't we ask more? Why don't you ask more? And I find it really hand in hand the results that you get with what you ask. So if it's not all, let's say 99% of people who I worked with, they're women business owners, they start their journey with us saying, "Oh, I don't want a team. I don't want a big business. I just want, my business to give me flexibility." Now, a, it's not defined, but also that kind of like, oh, I don't want big, I don't want more, sets everything completely differently, and it
Yeah.
changes.
Yeah.
It really changes. Actually, you put them in the mastermind groups, you put them with people who are actually growing their businesses, who are, who are starting to recruit their team. It's the first one, second one, then they start to grow. So this is a theory that I have, is, well, we were not taught to ask more, and we haven't been in business for, hundreds and hundreds of years. Actually, if you look at it, we have been in business for a very small amount of time, in very small parts of the business, as holding very small jobs, and we're just getting into understanding this as women. And in that sense, so here I'm coming back to this kind of fully women filled environment.
Mm.
In that sense, do you think that, and it's kind of loaded, this question, but do you think that if we keep it just, women to women, um are we going to miss out on dreaming bigger because we don't know how to? Or how do we get out of that, like, I'm not going to ask more?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, tricky question, but I think there's a few things that came to mind. Like, we need to speak openly about our ambitions. We need to speak openly about money. If you think about the way men behave, they'll share their salaries. They say, "This is the bonus I got. This is what base I'm on." Women never ever do that. Like, hardly. I remember asking members of my peer group like their base, and they were all really uncomfortable. I was like, "Well, this is what I'm on." When I was in my previous roles, and they're like, "Oh, okay, well, this is what I'm on." And it's just encouraging to have those
Yeah.
conversations, because the more we can ask, more have those conversations, understand what, like, how do you make more money? How can you negotiate about, how do you ask for more? How do you, then it just feels then you get more, right? And I think, and that's why I guess for us, we want to empower women to get in touch with, like, what is it they really want, right? Like, I know
Mm,
that I want to turn this business into the global home for women in business, right? That's my ambition. Like, it's gonna, and we're on our way to do that, and I'm very open about that, and I talk about that. I'm constantly thinking about, how can I do that? I speak to investors, I speak to, movers and shakers, men and women, to learn from them. So I think you just, and maybe not every woman wants that, and that's okay. But if you do, and you feel there's that fire in your belly that you want to do more, like, speak to everybody you can about it. Ask them how they made money. I mean, I was with a female founder yesterday, and she's crowdfunding, and I've invested in her business. And I was like, "How's it all going?" And she's like, "Yeah, it's tricky." I'm like, "Well, I know so and so, so I'm just going to connect you." And it's a woman I really believe in and support. So when I can, I help, right? And we just need to do a lot more of that, and just be really open with when I need help, and ask for help. I think, it's, don't like this. I've built some great relationships with female founders, and we help each other, right? So
mm,
it's not just take, it's give and take, and I think that's really important. and
yeah.
and just ask for help. I don't know if that answers, but I think, and I make sure that I speak to men and women. And when, we have some of our events, we do have men there, but really our mission is to advance women in business, to help women at every, like, meet them wherever they are in their career, whether you're a founder, mid-level manager, or C-suite. It's
Mm.
really about being open about the opportunities, the challenges, and using our expertise to help you get there.
Yeah. I love what you're saying, and I totally agree. I mean, and it is a constant inner battle for me. Like, actually, my this year, I said to myself, this year I'm gonna be a diva, and I'm gonna, like, even if I go to a place to get sandwich, I'll be like, oh, can I have this, and that sandwich? Asking for things that I would usually be not like willing to ask because I'm gonna make a fuss. And I guess that's a little bit cultural, a little bit being women. So, when you said something about like some women don't have that fire, this is where I go, I think places like Allbright, Academy for Women Entrepreneurs, or any places where they bring different horizons, different women from different horizons together. It actually, I think, is almost contagious.
Yeah.
That passion. Once you meet someone who wants more, who asks more, who's doing more, then you get that vibe, and you start to go, actually, you know what? And I think that is really, really important, and
Yeah,
really.
but it's also hard work, right? You can't just become an entrepreneur and think, well, I'm just going to make money overnight. Like it's hard work. I mean,
Yeah.
like it's like 60-hour week is a good week, right? It's hard work and you hustle, and that's part of the journey. So you have to really really love it. And I see a lot of entrepreneurs that come in through our building, but don't realize what it takes to
Oh
make
yeah.
the business a success. So I'm not shy about that as well. It's you're never really off, right? And
A
that
hundred percent.
that's okay. So I think you have to be realistic, and you have to listen to what you want, because it's not for any, and you have lots of experience working with entrepreneurs. It's not for everyone, right?
No. And another thing, I always say that I believe in hard work, in the value of hard work, and I think asking makes that hard work easier. If you don't ask, actually, that's when hard work becomes grind and hustle. It's not hard work, it's just hustling, because you're on your own, you're trying to do something. It's like one step further, two step back, and you haven't asked for help, or for you haven't put it out there. And that's when actually I feel like hard work becomes not enjoyable, because hard work, I hard work, I work all the time, but I love it because it fuels me. So, okay, we are coming towards the end, but I have a few more questions. So, in terms of reframing ambition, asking, what could you, and you do have a lot of women entrepreneurs in your community, much more than us. I see you as like big sister. So, what could you say to women entrepreneurs on how to reframe their ambition? So, just specifically to women entrepreneurs.
I think it's really taking the time to be clear on what you want. Not just like be really, really clear. Um, Talk about it, have friends challenge it, socialize the idea. And once you're clear on your goal, then it's really about creating that path of how you get there, right? And I'm sure all the women do that, but it doesn't just happen. It happens in stages. Asking is also about building relationships first. You don't ask like, so I think it's really under like, and sense check your business as well and your idea, right? Why is it unique? Test it, get feedback. And then I think just prepare, right? You can never over prepare. So I think for me that's really important. Like I know, when we launched a new product, I stress tested with customers. I got good feedback, constructive feedback, negative feedback. I was very clear on what we wanted it to do, and then be prepared that what your initial ambition or your initial desire for the product will change. I have a friend that's looking to launch a business, and he keeps saying, "Oh, maybe I should do it this way. Maybe I should," and he gets advice from everyone. And I just look at him. I say, "It doesn't really matter, because the way you do it is just not going to work at the beginning, right? So be clear on what you want. Just go and try, and you're going to have to win and fail throughout the year until you get the product where you want it to be." Like we launched the product here a year ago, and we shifted. We made changes to it in the first year because that's what happens. So
Mm,
I think be clear on what you want, and then just go, like start. Don't wait
mm,
for the perfect moment. Don't wait for the perfect investor. Don't wait for the perfect, like, just start, right?
mm,
Because it's like we all dream about having, or like not all, but I think many women dream about having their business and doing XYZ, but you have to just start, right?
mm.
I think that's the difference.
That is, yeah, and I love what you said. So get clear, build relationships, and start and be ready that a tech entrepreneur that I had listened to years ago. I don't know if you've heard of Cora Kids. She's the founder of Cora Kids. She had said, you know, you need to make peace with change, and it will change every 3 months. Things will change. So that's
Yeah.
exactly what you're saying as well.
I see it here. Like we have, staff members who after a while like tap out, right? Because like it's just too much change. And I said, fair. Like when you're working in a smaller company, it's constant change. So
Constant.
and I think you have to be comfortable with that. And regardless of actually whether you're in a small or large company now, change is the new normal. Like it's hard to forecast, it's hard to predict anything. So you have to get really, really comfortable with that.
Definitely. So, Viv, when I speak to you, it's like this powerhouse woman, Zaina, warrior. She has an amazing family with 2 kids. She's, you're the CEO. Everything looks so, you know, big achiever. So, tell me what keeps you awake at night.
Gosh, I always get this answer, this question. Sorry, I always get this question. One, I don't have it all figured out, right? And different things keep me awake, at different times. The business, cash flow, or I think about. Sometimes I think about my family. It just depends what's happening in my life at the time. I often get asked, "Oh, how do you balance it?" Oh, I don't. There's weeks where I'm really good at it, and there's weeks where I'm really shit at it. So I focus on presence a lot. So when I'm at work, I'm present, I'm listening, I'm 100% here. When I'm home, I'm 100% there. I would say what's really helped my well-being, and what's helped me sleep at night rather than keep me up awake is just looking after my health, right? So I make sure that I've got a good morning routine. I've got a good evening routine. I exercise. I meditate. I take walks. I take a lot of time for myself, and I think that perception that a CEO doesn't is outdated, right? I don't take any meetings before a certain time in the morning, so I can make space to read the papers, to read industry news, to go for a walk or go for a run, and it's the only way that I can be my best self in every aspect of my life is to really fiercely prioritize me, right? And I think that's really, really important. And because of that, my sleep is better, right? I would say in the past I've been go, go, go and not prioritizing myself as much. And it's not, I think sometimes we think about it as being selfish. And, when I sit on panels with mothers and they talk about guilt, and I'm like, well, I don't have any. And I know that sounds really perhaps wrong or arrogant, but I make sure that I make time for that. I integrate everything in the best way that I can. Like my parents worked, both of them, they're like my whole life. So I don't know any different, right? But what I try and do is just make sure that I put me first so I can be the best that I can everywhere else.
You fill the bucket before you pour it.
Exactly. There's so many different analogies for it. Put your mask on before the others do this. But I do. I'm very, and a friend of mine calls it like um, fiercely self-compassionate, right? And I think that's, I think more leaders are realizing that in order to be the best they can, they have to look after their well-being.
Oh, 100%. Yes. So and making time for it is not taking time out of your life actually. That is the priority. That's an amazing thing. So, right, we're coming towards the end. And I have 2 more questions. The first one is, do you remember the last book that really kind of went into your heart, the name? And what is the podcast or person that you're following or you're reading constantly?
Okay, I'm going to answer the second one first, so you can give me time to think of the first one. So I'm a big fan of Steve Bartlett's Diary with the CEO.
Hmm.
I really like that, and because it's got a nice breadth of business leaders, neuroscientists, health. So I listened to that. I listened to Elizabeth Day's podcast as well.
Yeah,
Had to fail. I think that's really brilliant.
love it, the name even.
Yeah, a book that I read that I really, really loved was Solve for Happy. I read that last year.
Morgada.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I read,
amazing
I
book.
read that last year and I recommended it to everyone. And in fact, I then went on to a retreat that he was hosting because I loved it so much and I learned so much from him. So I think that one had a really big impact on me as well.
Oh, fabulous. Thank you. I promise last question is coming.
Yeah.
So, the name of this podcast is She's Awesome.
Hmm.
And the reason why I went into it, it's a little bit in the same line as reframing ambition, owning your thing, right? And I noticed that we women are not really good at owning our awesomeness. So I always finish every interview with the same question: Viv, why are you awesome?
Oh gosh, I think for so many reasons.
Amazing! I love it.
I generally care about lifting others up, particularly my team. Right, I think I'm really passionate about that, and I think I'm in this unique position where I do something that gives back and has purpose, but also drives commercial growth.
Mhm.
And then I do it all while having fun, right? And I just think that's life, enjoying it. So hopefully that's a few reasons, but yeah.
That is pretty awesome. Thank you so much, Viv. I know that you're a busy woman, and thank you for giving us your time and sharing your journey and your tips, your golden nuggets with us and with our listeners. And I cannot wait to put this on air, and we'll let you know.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.